Hello.
Yeah, that's your name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think of it because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving. And I'm like, ooh, there's some deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a T-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the
275 pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
the Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
Yeah.
You know.
He's like,
he's up there slapping, pissing all over everything.
Is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's right. I know.
Why did you say his name?
Hervé Villechaize.
You know what Pertnear means.
If you know what Pertnear means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pertnear Outdoors. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. This is your host, Billy, and this week we are going to do the first of hopefully a few different little local spotlights on some local archery pro shops. I don't know about you, but over the last 4 or 5 months, especially since everything that has been going on, I've been thinking a little bit differently as far as trying to keep things local, buy American, things like that. Want to know that folks that own small businesses are definitely feeling the pain of a lot of the challenges that have come forth with everything going on with the virus and the virus especially. So my mindset, as well as a lot of the folks around me, including my brother and Danny and the guys that you know on here, has been trying to keep the business local. So what we're doing is we're going to highlight a few of the archery shops that we have experience dealing with, that we trust and want to share our experiences with, share those folks with you guys that are listening, guys and girls that are listening. And so this week we are sitting down. I sat down with Mike and Maureen from Earth Spirits Archery over in Warsaw. They are they're off the beaten path, but they are not hard to get to if you're coming from Buffalo or Rochester or even south into the even if you're down in the southern tier, shooting north on Route 19, you can get there pretty quickly. So I think you'll enjoy this episode. We didn't really have a whole lot of things that I wanted to get accomplished more than just have a good conversation. They're great people. This is the pro shop that I use currently and have used since I moved out here to Wyoming County. And since the first time I met them, this shop was I felt comfortable. I felt like it was a place that I wanted to take my business each year. So you will hear us talk about kind of the who they are, what they're all about, the products that they carry, their experience in working on all makes and models. That's something that they may not be the dealer for every brand, but it doesn't make a difference. Mike has the experience with his many years of working on all makes and models, and they have been dealers of most of the major name brands over the years, but they've chosen, and you'll hear them talk about, they've recently kind of trimmed back the brands that they're supporting and carrying, and there's a lot that goes into that, which we won't get into, but they're making decisions that are best for them and what they believe in, and that speaks a lot to me. And if you get to know Mike and Maureen, and you get a little bit of a taste from this conversation today, you know that they're genuine people that want to see folks have success. It's not all about the bottom dollar. It's more about getting people to have that passion and have the success out when they're chasing deer. Really love these two. I think you'll love the conversation. And I want to address the elephant in the room that if you are local around this area, there's been some rumors, and if you drive by their place, you'll see that there's a for sale sign out front. Don't let that fool you, or don't let the rumors hit you. They're not going anywhere. They are looking to, obviously they have a for sale sign out front, so they're looking to sell the house and the property and the barn that they currently have. But if they are so lucky to do that, they're looking to to move down the road to their other property and build a little bit smaller house, something they can manage and keep the business in their name and have another shop there at their new property. So just want to address that. That was something that we did not bring up on this podcast, but it's something that that I think many folks out there, including myself, had heard and was wondering about. So don't let that turn you away from going to them this fall as you get ready to head out into the deer woods and chase around some whitetails. So that's that. Enjoy this episode there. As far as the housekeeping things goes, we are fresh out of hats. So thank you all. That's 48 Pertnear Pro Staff hats have been sold, and we've got 48 new Pertnear Pro Staffers out there. So, and if you're wondering what that means, Pertnear Pro Staff, think about it. Think about what Pertnear means. It means pretty much, pretty close, kinda, almost got 'em. So Pertnear Pro Staff. So basically, we don't take the whole pro staff thing too seriously, and that's part of why we are named Pertnear. We don't get too excited about all that stuff. We're more excited about getting people into the outdoors and sharing our experiences and helping everybody be more successful, including ourselves. So if you want to be part of what we're doing, all joking aside, everybody can be. And if you buy a hat, if you buy a sticker, if you support us in any way, if you listen to this podcast, you share it, you're part of the community. And that's what it's all about, is about community and trying to highlight what we have going on around Western New York here. And my intent when we first started the podcast was for it to be a whole New York widespread thing, but it's kind of really narrowed down to Western New York. But I don't want to alienate our friends across the state, and would hope to grow our listenership and the folks that are following along with us all the way across New York State, because we do travel, we do hunt other areas of the state, and there's some great things to hear and talk about, whether it be up in the Adirondacks or up in the St. Lawrence area or down in the Catskills. There's some awesome stuff going on in our state, and we definitely want to get everybody on here to tell their stories about what they're up to. So I will leave it at that. Enjoy this podcast. Enjoy the conversation. I hope you have a great week coming up, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have something you want to talk about. So thanks again. Keep feeding them.
Well, Mike will probably be doing most of the talking anyway.
No.
I don't know. I've been here for 20 minutes, and you're running the show.
She does run the
Get
show.
into hunting and stuff. That's when he'll.
She does run the show.
Yeah. We all know who's behind this place.
That's right.
I hope that's a good thing.
People keep coming back, right?
Yeah, I'm a gabber. I'm a talker.
Guilty as charged, right?
I like to talk.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. So today I am here at Earth Spirits Archery in Warsaw, New York. So I'm sitting down with Mike and Maureen Gober. So thank you guys for letting me come to your place and sit down here in your pro shop, and we can talk a little archery talk and hunting talk and whatever else we get into. So thanks for having me into your place to sit down with you guys today.
No problem.
More than welcome.
Thank you. So the as I mentioned before we started recording, we wanted to kind of start highlighting some of the archery shops around Western New York. That's primarily where we are, but if we get the opportunity to interact with some other archery shops around the state, we know there's an influx of new hunters coming in, but even people who have been hunting for years and years, it's important to have that connection with a pro shop near where you are, whether it's an hour away, 10 minutes away, 15 minutes away, whatever it is. I found that personally with you guys, and that's why you're my first stop, is that when I moved out here, and my experience with archery shops was almost always going to Dick's Sporting Goods or going to Cabela's, the big box stores, just getting your bow, pulling it out of the box a week before season starts, and throw some arrows, and then I'm going hunting. So about 5 years ago now, I had a PSE, Bow Madness, and you guys support PSE. At least did at the time. You guys still
do.
Yep.
Still do, yeah.
So I came out here and immediately, just felt the welcome vibe that you guys have at your shop, and it was, I knew I felt comfortable right from the start. So, that was how I got introduced to you guys, and whether I know like the bow I bought last year is not a bow that I didn't buy it from you guys. It's not a bow that you guys sell the brand of, but still you were super supportive. I remember sitting right where Maureen is right now, and as I was hemming and hawing about what to do, and at the end of the day, you told me, like, look, you gotta do what's best for you and what bow you like the most. And at the time, that was the bow that felt the best in my hand. So like that to me meant so much to have that from you guys. Just not so much as like, well, pound rocks, you're not buying a bow from me, I don't want to talk to you. It was like, that's cool, man. Like, we get it. You do what you got to do. So I guess just laying that out there first, like you guys from jump, when I met you, I knew that you guys were a cool couple that's got a good thing going here at Earth Spirit. So,
Well, you know, we work together here. You know, we decided to do this a long time ago prior to my retirement. And Maureen and I sat down and we talked, and what are we going to do during retirement? It was, well, you know, let's open an archery shop. And we sat and we talked about it, and like, there's not an archery shop around here. You know, the big box stores are here. You know, the Dick's, the Cabela's, the Walmarts, but to have an archery shop out in the country in no man's land, as some people call it out here, we thought it was a really good idea, and it's actually turned out to be a great venture in our retirement.
Yeah, it kind of blew up a little more than we expected it to. So we, for a while there, you know, working more hours than you did while you were working. But you know what they say: if you're doing something you love, it's not working.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's been a great experience because we've met so many people, and
Yeah,
a
lot of great
diversified
people.
group of people. And our pull area and draw area for the shop out here in Wyoming County in no man's land is quite substantial. You know, we had the motto when we came into this that, you know, commit a customer and leave a friend.
Yeah.
And that's the way we wanted it to be, and that's the way we will keep it being. We want people to feel comfortable when they come to our shop. We don't want them to feel as though when they go into the shop that they have to buy something. And actually, when the shop first started, in its initial season or two, you know, none of the remodel was done here in the shop, and guys would come in before the hunt, and then we'd sit out in the garage or in the barn, and the tractors would be there, and the lawnmowers would be there, and gas smell and stuff, and talk before the hunt, talk after the hunt. And now it's like a hangout area. You know, the guys come in and they show us their pictures, they tell us our stories, and we have an area that we can sit down and relax and enjoy everybody's stories. So it really turned out to be quite the venture, and we've been very, very happy with it. So excited about it right from the beginnings.
Yeah, actually, and let's get into that, you know, from the beginnings and even before that. So what's your guys' background? I don't really know much more about you other than the day I walked in the door here and started having you guys be the shop I wanted to go to. So what's your hunting background? What did you guys do prior to this being kind of your full-time gig? Just all that. Like, I guess kind of, you don't have to go back to birth, but you know, kind of like how did your guys' passion in the outdoors get started, each one of you, and where it led to today?
Well, my passion started with my father and my grandfather and my uncle. You know, I was born and raised in Pennsylvania in the Poconos, and we had a hunting camp up there. And, you know, I've been going out in the woods with my father since I was 5 years old. So, I mean, I have some pictures in the house showing from 1960, 62, 63, and I started hunting in 66. But the passion for the outdoors was a family thing. You know, not just the hunting, but being out in the wilderness and being out in the woods. So my hunting career, I can actually say, started back in the early 60s when I was a young snot. You know, I worked on the railroad, retired for the railroad after 39 years, and 5 years prior to retirement, we started the bow shop, and I moved up here in 1997 from Pennsylvania, and it's just been a great experience. Western New York is one of the best areas, in my opinion, that you can find as far as wilderness areas and hunting areas and anything that you want to do, fishing, hunting, trapping, anything. And I was very surprised when I moved up here because I didn't realize there was that much farmland up here. I always figured Western New York up north was a lot colder, you know, and there was really nothing to do except fish and hunt. But I was very surprised about the amount of farmland that was up here and the amount of game that was actually up here. And then Maureen and I got into hunting together, so...
Yeah, that's when mine started. Mike got me into it. I was always an outdoorsy person. I like to do photography outdoors, and used to go to the Alabama swamps and walk around and photograph all the wildlife there and stuff. And then Michael got me into archery and kind of blossomed from there.
And so how did you start out using compound, or were you using
Yeah.
a crossbow?
Yeah, compound.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have compound and a crossbow now.
What's your preference?
Crossbow.
Yeah.
Well,
Has
only
that developed over time?
It has, only because I shoot a lower poundage than most men do. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting up there, so I feel more confident with my crossbow in my shot.
Yeah.
I mean, because we're all after that ethical shot. Just so the animal's not suffering in that. So I do love to go archery hunting with my bow, but my confidence level gets boosted with my crossbow. And I don't think a lot of guys, and we're selling a lot of them to the older gentlemen that are experiencing the same issues. My shoulders, this or that. It's just easier for me. You can reach out a little bit farther, get a better shot, an ethical kill, and
It comes
less
back
tracking.
And it comes back to confidence. I mean, almost everybody in my family, like the immediate Harvey family, our deer camp, almost everybody bought a crossbow, and they're using a crossbow during that period we're allowed to.
Right.
Because their feeling is it's just fun. It's something different. It changes up the pace a little bit, and it adds that confidence level. But I don't know if I'm trying to think if anybody in our family's actually shot one with the crossbow. Like, they've carried it for 2 or 3 years now. And it's hilarious because you'll see, like, you're used to seeing everybody with their bow strapped to the four-wheeler on their backpack,
Right.
leaving camp. And these guys, they got the slings, look like the mafia leaving the camp. They got their
One over
crossbows
one
their
shoulder,
shoulders
one
and-
over the other.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, don't ask Scott Murray how he feels about crossbows, because you'll be getting your earful.
Oh yeah, I know.
Scotty, he is like passionate as hell about the crossbows are the worst thing since I don't know. It's like, dude, chill out, man. It's like, hey, it's getting people out there.
But you gotta look and put everything into perspective. I mean, there's guys out there. I'm 66.
Yeah.
I started with an 80-pound bow. Compound
Without the let off and everything.
with
that
no
we had.
let off or anything. I'm down to 52 pounds now. I've had shoulder surgeries, knee surgeries. I just can't draw that poundage back like I used to, and be efficient with it, and be have that confidence level like I used to. So when crossbow comes in, the last 2 weeks, my bow gets hung up, and I'm out in the woods with a crossbow. So it doesn't matter, in my opinion, what you're harvesting or hunting with. It's the individual. There's so many guys that can't draw a bow back, that would love to be out in the woods, and if crossbow was in full inclusion, they would be in the woods.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that are against crossbows, but I look at it and try to put it in perspective for like the senior citizens or handicapped.
Yeah.
If in fact it was put into a full inclusion, and to try to get it in somewhere somehow, should look at starting it in that aspect.
Yeah.
Senior citizens and handicap, because there's so many guys that still want a bow hunt, but they can't.
Right.
So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the future brings with that, because I think it would be very beneficial for the sport. We don't have a shortage of deer around here. So if it's if you go to other states where they don't have a lot of tags, because they're just the way that their management plan's set up, it may be counterproductive, because it might be a little more efficient killing deer with a crossbow than it is with a compound. So you might have higher deer kill numbers. So like, there's that argument out there, but here we don't have that problem. So it's like New York State, we have a lot of deer. It's not hard to get tags. There's a few areas where, you go in the southern tier and stuff, like where there's a little bit lower deer density. But you come up here, it's like, my opinion, you should be able to hunt from start of season to the end of season with a crossbow. Me personally, it's like, because if you're a new hunter, we were talking before we hit the record, all these new hunters and that are going to take the archery course, that did the online course over the last month and a half, 2 months, if they could feel more confident to come in here and see you guys and buy a crossbow and shoot 20 arrows, and they feel confident, to go out there and have that opportunity compared to, I mean, a compound can be pretty intimidating. If you,
Sure.
you know, you can go out there and fling some arrows, but I've been hunting with a compound for almost 20 years, and I'm still not feeling like I'm to where not 20 years, 15 years. But, you know, I'm still not to that level. Like, I don't know if you ever really truly feel like you've mastered something. So, I don't know. That's all. I didn't plan on going down that angle with the whole crossbow thing, but I think that it's an interesting topic.
Well, I just think it's important to bring it up because there are
Should
so
have
many guys
discussions
that
and
want
debates about it to
Yeah.
get all the views and opinions of all the people that are out there as hunters in our industry that contribute to the sport, contribute to the revenue aspect of it. You know, they should all count. Their opinions should be heard, and then they can make a educated, you know,
Right.
decision, if you will. You know, just the Crossbow Coalition and the Bow Hunters Association are the ones that are having the debates.
Yeah, right.
You know, we have comment times, you know, but we all wonder, are they really reading them all? You know, are they really taking them into consideration, or is this another, you know, because it happened when they went from recurve to compound, the same thing.
I bet, yeah.
So eventually they'll probably, you know, I mean, we got the 2 weeks, so that's something.
Yeah.
You know, and eventually I think that you'll see it go the same way.
Yeah. And, you know, in talking about the online course, I think that that happened so fast. You know, the state turned on a dime and made that decision, which to me it was actually kind of refreshing to see them realize that they're coming up on a huge youth hunting opportunity, and that's turkey season, to have no courses, all those courses canceled, all those people.
Our class got canceled as well.
Now, do you guys host one here? Or
Yes,
are you guys
every year.
instructors, or you guys just host it?
We just host it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to go that and I had the gentleman from the DEC on the podcast back when they first announced it, because I was like, I gotta learn more about this and what their direction is with that. And the immediate response that they had in the first 3 or 4 days was 16,000 people signed up
Yeah.
for the course.
Yeah, it was huge.
And we were just talking before we hit record that, and I think you were thinking that it was probably just the May numbers, that was 24,000 people that had taken that course and are out there and now looking for guidance to get going on their hunting adventure. So,
well, that's actually one of our favorite things to do, is the education. You know, the new hunters that come in, it's like, ooh, a clean slate.
Yeah.
You know, and we go through the whole thing. We spend hours, at least. I mean, it's usually 2 to 3 hours, depending on if they have the time.
Yeah.
And they're eager to learn. And, you know, I mean, when you have the experience that Mike does out in the field, you know, he really, really enjoys working with the kids, teaching them things. Even the older, we've had a lot of women come in the last month or so, and you know, a few kids and even some gentlemen in their 20s and 30s that have never hunted before.
yeah.
You know, I want to get into it. You know, why is that coming? You know, I don't know. We can all guess, but
Yeah.
you know, so that's we really like that aspect of our job, and the education side of it is fun.
Yeah.
You know.
So I want to talk about what the experience is for somebody that comes in here. If you are, regardless of what your experience level is, what your experience is when you come in here, how you guys approach that. But first, I wanted to, you know, on your experience and your background, Mike, and your training that I'm sure you've received to be the technician that you are. Kind of what's your, when did you really get deep into it?
I actually started working on bows in 1977. I was living in New Jersey. A bunch of buddies and myself used to get together, and we hunted together, we shot together, but got hooked up with a little sporting goods store down in New Jersey in North Brunswick, and he was also a charter captain. My parents bought my first compound bow there in 1977, and at that time it was a Martin Super T, loaded with arrows, quiver, everything was $150. You know, killed a lot of deer with it. But he had a small bow shop, and I used to hang out there quite a bit after work. You know, and he taught me how to work on bows. I actually never went to a training seminar. I'm sort of a self-taught technician through him from 1977, and after I moved from there, I just kept on working on bows, my own bows and my buddies' bows, and felt it was time to take the plunge, if you will, up here. Had offers from other bow shops to go in and work for them, especially during the busy season when Maureen and I would go into shops. But I said, well, if I was going to do it, I was going to do it for myself and do it for us. So that's why we started the shop. So it's been a lot of years working on bows, and we work on every bow that's made, from the old bows to the new bows. I mean, up in the tech room, I think you could attest to the fact of some of the bows that are hanging up in the tech room there, and we have a lot of guys that will come in and buy a new bow, and their old bows are hanging up in the shop. They don't want to throw them away. They don't want to sell them, and we put them on display up there. They give them to me, and I hang them up and put them on display, so people, the younger generations, can see what archery was about years ago, and see where it is today with today's technology. So working on bows is a passion. I love it. It's always a good thing, or a great thing, not a good thing. It's a great thing to have someone come in that has a problem, and you can pick up their equipment, look at it, talk to them, show them what's wrong with it, get it repaired, and a couple days later they're shooting.
The cat loves that cord.
Yeah, they're shooting bullseyes, and then you can see the smile on their face and the reaction that you get from them. So it's very rewarding, very rewarding.
There's so much in a bow and in a confidence that your bow's set up correctly. Because I remember when I brought my PSE in here, and I had I had a Bow Madness, and it was one of those ready to shoot models, and that thing was short. It was like a 28-inch axle to axle single cam. It was just like a really and you from the start, there was a lot of things that it was off tune, and it needed some work. I mean, we put a new string on it, put a new rest on it. We did a bunch of stuff with that bow.
Yep.
And almost immediately, I just felt so much more confident with it. But then number two, I was explaining to you some of the challenges I was having, where I felt like the bow was always trying to run away from me, as far as like I'd be drawn all the way back, and it just felt like the string constantly wanted to come out of my hand. So it was kind of creating some like tension for me when I was trying to make that smooth shot. And you were explaining to me that you gotta understand, when you have a shorter axle to axle bow, and I have a 29-inch draw length, or a little over 29-inch, whatever it is, that you have a super steep string angle, and that just puts so much more tension on that whole situation. So
yeah, exactly. And a lot of guys, taller guys, and I use like a 6'1" range, 6'2" range. A lot of the guys want to shoot these small axle, these 28-inch axle bows. But the string angle on them is so abrupt, and they have 29 and 30-inch draw lengths, and some of the standard peeps that are sold in shops or in Cabela's aren't going to work. They're going to need like a 45-degree angle peep in that, instead of a 37 or 38-degree angle peep. And they'll come into the shop and say, "Man, I can't see out of my peep. I don't know what's wrong." And I mean, I've had some bows come in where the peeps were in backwards.
Yeah.
And guys said, "I can't see nothing out of my peep," and pick up the bow and look at it and say, "Well, yeah, if it was in the right way, you'd be able to see through it." Yeah. But that short axle is great for guys. A lot of guys that go out west like it because they can run up and down the mountains with it. They don't want that longer axle. But the way archery is, and in our bow, archery doesn't start with the bow. Archery starts with the individual's hand and how that bow feels in the individual's hand. And my advice has been, and always will be, if you pick up a bow and it doesn't feel good in your hand, you might as well just hang that bow back up and go pick another one up, because you're going to end up fighting that bow forever and ever and ever, and you're going to get all upset with yourself, and you're going to end up torquing, you're going to develop bad habits.
Right.
So, pick up a bow and feel it and see how it feels in your hand. And when that bow, you'll know which one to buy, because if it feels good, you're going to end up buying it. And then naturally, when the bow is set up properly, it's the archer that makes the shot.
Yeah.
The bow tech sets the bow up, all right, to the specifications, and makes all those changes. But keep in mind, the archer is the one that makes that bow work. After the tech hands that bow over, his job is done.
Yeah, it's not your fault.
Yeah, I mean, it's the archer that makes that bow work day in and day out. And you don't have to shoot a lot of arrows to become proficient. You know, take your time, get into it, shoot some arrows, take a break. And when you see yourself starting to waver or wander, put the bow down, take a rest, and start another day. But again, I can't emphasize it enough how much it is that the archer is the one that makes the bow work.
Yeah.
I mean, I set him up as though it was my bow, my wife's bow, or my kids' bows. But when that bow leaves here and they come down the range and we get them sighted in, and you can turn around and see that smile on their face, that's what it's worth.
Yeah. 100%. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, yeah. There's just no doubt about it. And Maureen, when Maureen got started, she said, "Well, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to shoot a bow." And we didn't even have the shop then. We were out in the yard, shooting in the yard.
It was a hand-me-down bow that did not fit me.
Yeah, it was a hand-me-down from one of my buddies from New Jersey. It was a PSE, and after it got handed down to Maureen, it got handed down to our daughter. And
I liked it though.
But we were shooting out in the yard, and she really enjoyed it and liked it. And you know, here we are. You know, what, 15 years later?
Something like that.
And the whole family's into archery now, you
Date
know?
yourself,
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a tough thing too is, you know, like about a year ago, my wife was kind of, she likes the idea of shooting. With our stage, with having the young kids, it's just, I mean, it's hard enough for me to find the time. So we started with that, and then she got pregnant again, and it was like, okay, we're not going to get into this right now. But we were trying to hand me down a bow from her cousin Brian, his wife, and she got that bow from someone else. Same deal you're talking. Mm-hmm. And it was just, you know, we kind of set it up. You know, Brian's got a press. We kind of messed with it. It's like, I didn't want Sarah to shoot it too much, my wife, because I didn't want her to get, because it wasn't her bow. It wasn't, she didn't pick it out. It wasn't necessarily what she felt she was comfortable with. It was just like, here's a bow, shoot it.
Sure.
Right.
And I think it is a huge factor. And almost everybody, you know, as I say that, I think back to my first bow, hand-me-downs. Almost everybody, especially when you're a young kid, you almost always start out, at least my experience, start out in that situation where somebody gives you their old bow and then it goes down to the next one, and that's how it works. But it is like you guys mentioned, starting with that clean slate. You get that person that comes in here that has never shot before and is looking to get started. Like, that is just the perfect ideal situation for you to get that person into something that is for them. Right for them. So I guess let's go down that path. Like, what does that look like when somebody shows up here to your shop and they walk in the door? You know, what can they expect when they come to your place of business here? Are you going to start yelling at them as soon as they walk in the door, or what?
I don't think I've only yelled at one guy in the last 10 years, and if you like, I'll tell you that little story.
I would love to hear it. I would love to hear it.
Well, it was hunting. He's a customer. He's a really nice kid, you know, and I'm kind of, you know, friendly like that, and I like to, you know, have some fun, joke around and stuff. But he came in during hunting season, and I lost an arrow. I hit a deer. I lost an arrow, so I need to get another arrow. And he pulls out. I said, well, okay, so what are you shooting? Let's, you know, we got to match the spine and blah, blah, blah. And he pulls out a quiver full of all kinds of mishmash that, you know, well, some of them I picked up at Cabela's. Some of them I got at Walmart. Some of them I got here, you know.
My buddy gave me
they
some.
They were all different spines, all different lengths, you know, all different weights. And I was like, well, no wonder you missed the deer, bud. You know, tried to explain to him, spend some time. You know, you really have to have everything set up so that it all kind of meshes together and everything's doing their job the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so I sold him another arrow and talked him into 3, actually, and said, you can leave those here if you like, and I'll watch them for you, just so he wouldn't shoot them. Comes back the next day, I need another arrow. And, well, it wasn't the next day. It was a few days later.
Days later, yeah.
Yeah, I need another arrow. And I was like, what happened to the 3 you got here like last week or a couple weeks ago? Oh, well, I lost those, so I just grabbed these from Walmart. So I just had the arrow in my hand, and I just kind of tapped him on the shoulder. I said, "What did I tell you about arrows?" And he just started laughing. So that was really the only time I've ever yelled at a
That
customer.
doesn't sound
but
that bad.
no, it wasn't. I
expecting
wasn't
a lot
really
worse.
yelling at him, but we were joking around. But
giving
that was me scolding one of my customers.
Yeah, which he should have been scolded. But that's like I've been there. I've literally found arrows when I was out hunting. I found an arrow on the ground, and I started shooting it on my bow. And this is I was probably 14 or 15, and it's just the stuff you don't know until you know it. And we started this conversation out. I never really had a pro shop where I came in and interacted, and now there's so much. Like there are so many of these podcasts out there where you've got guys that are going deep into this stuff and explaining all these things. There's so much available information. Where when I was younger, my dad wasn't not with us, but it was just never a big thing. Like we never talked about any of the importance of having like arrows and like arrow point weight and spine, and like no idea about that stuff. So when you're coming into this, if you're somebody that's just getting into archery, it's like mine's exploding. Like what the hell's a spine of an arrow? Like you don't even know.
And that's why we keep it simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, at first especially.
We keep it to the basics because there's so much information, whether it's online or in magazines, and people will come into the shop and, well, I read this, or I saw this, or, that's why we keep it simple, because it's got to be an individual thing. We've had plenty of customers over the years come in and say, my buddy said that I need to buy this bow. And my comment to them is, well, who's shooting the bow, you or your buddy? How do you know you're going to like that bow? Well, he said that's the one I should buy. And I go back to what I said earlier. Pick the bow up, put it in your hand, see how it feels. And believe it or not, a lot of the times, they said, man, I just don't like the way that bow feels.
Yeah.
And they end up buying something different. So it's a very individual thing. Draw length, draw weight. It's like I tell people, when they come in, you find the bow that fits you, that feels comfortable to you, and we can always set up poundage and draw length, all right? But the bow that you pick out's got to be the bow that you want, not your buddy, not your wife, not your brother, because it's got to feel good in your hand.
Yeah.
So, that's why we keep things simple.
Yeah, usually the first question, as soon as they walk through the door, like you were saying, and they're like, okay, I want to get into archery. Okay. The first question is, what are you going to do? Are you going to just hunt? Are you just going to shoot out in the backyard with the family? Sometimes it's a lady who's like, well, I don't want to kill anything. I just want to shoot because everyone else is shooting and I'm just sitting there watching.
Right.
So you find out where their head is at right off the get-go. And then, okay. And then you can kind of, get into budget and, all that kind of stuff. And, the stuff is really, really expensive these days to get into it. So if you don't need that, to spend $2,500 on one of those big setups because you're going to competition shoot or something like that, then, we would never direct them in that direction. That's kind of silly. So that's like the first question that we ask. And then we just get talking to them and, we go from there.
Yeah.
But, and it's no different with accessories and stuff. I mean, as well as we do, there's just so many different products on the market, single pin, multi-pin, this sight, that rest, this, and it's like with stabilizers is one of my pet peeves, a guy will come in and say, yeah, my buddy said I need a stabilizer. Well, how does your buddy know that? He's not shooting your bow.
Yeah.
Only you. I said I can't even tell you if you need a stabilizer.
It's marketing. It's marketing. All of it's marketing.
I mean, I can sell you one. You want one? I'll sell you one. But do you actually need it?
Yeah.
You can take that 50, 60, 30, 40, whatever, how much it costs, and put it towards something else that you actually need. But only you are the one that knows you're going to need a stabilizer.
Right.
Yeah, I can explain what a stabilizer does and how it will help you if you're wavering and cutting your circles down or your figure eights down and giving you a little bit more stability. But you're the only one that knows that.
Yeah.
And these bows are so quiet now;
God,
they hardly ever have any major vibration in them.
Yeah.
The technology is just amazing. I can't understand how manufacturers can actually come out with all this stuff every single year.
Yeah,
it's like, oh my God, how can you improve upon, a great bow?
Yeah. Well, they're cutting hairs at this point.
Yeah, it's like, well, why fix it if it ain't broke? Is my thing. Just keep putting, make that one a little bit better, and just keep improving on what. If you've already got a great product, why do you want to get rid of it and come out with something new? Because whoever tells you should.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's another thing that you guys I think do a really nice job of is that you never make, like I came in here for, it was either 2 or 3 years with the same bow, and you guys didn't try to get me into another bow. And I think there's a lot of situations, I can't say I've ever experienced it, but it's like going to a car dealership and getting your oil changed. And they're like, hey,
you need a new car.
The salesman comes out, hey, did you see the special we're running? It's like,
yeah.
You never get that sort of feeling here. And that's, to your point, Maureen, it's like, if you have a bow that fits you well, there hasn't been a ton of major changes in the industry that are really worth jumping. Some people, it's just like people with their cars. They love having the new bow every year. Mm-hmm. That's fine. That's why they do it, because people like to buy them. But if you get into a bow that's comfortable for you, there's no need for you to continue changing. But you need to go to the doctor every year and come to the bow shop and let them make sure that everything's operating properly, because things can get off.
Absolutely. That's why we do that annual time and tune special that we do. Give it an inspection, because Mike goes through. And they when they leave here, they probably have a headache, because we kind of do give them a lot of information the very first time they come in. So, if they forget, Mike always has them, come back right before the season. Let me make sure everything is still good. Sometimes if they're new, somebody's touched their stuff, well, you're kind of shooting to the left now. Well, that's because we just shot 120 arrows and I'm kind of tired, But, just things like that. So we make sure that our customers, if they're going afield, that, we sold them the equipment. We want them to make an ethical kill. We want them to be psyched about that. That's the best experience that they can possibly get, is to come here as a new hunter or a new archer especially, get set up, shoot well, build that confidence, go out there and harvest their first deer, and then send us a picture or bring us the deer and, sit down around the fire and have a beer. Who cares,
Yeah.
That is, you can't put a price on that. Mm-mm. That's why we do this.
Yeah.
There's no words for it. How it makes us feel. It's just the greatest thing.
And the community aspect of it. And that's every time I come in here, whether it's been a year or it's been, 2 weeks, it's like there's just so much to talk about, because hunting is just such a passionate thing, and you get into it.
It is.
Do you guys do anything by appointment? Like if somebody wanted to come and actually, if they were new, or if somebody that really wanted to get into, I want to look at buying a new bow and they want to have that undivided attention. Do you guys do appointments?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, we prefer that way, because then we're guaranteed to be able to spend an hour. Usually if it's a brand new archer, we block off 2 hours. So, I'll start a little bit if Mike's finishing up with another customer, and then, when I get him to that point, I pass him off to Mike so he can get more in depth on the technology and the forum and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we really prefer appointments. During the week it's a little bit slower, but Saturdays absolutely. Yeah. Because what usually happens is everyone's like, oh, well, we wanted to go to the lake at noon, so we're going to go to the bow shop at 10. And then there's 6 people here, and they all want the same thing. And then we just feel really bad when we can't give that undivided attention to every single customer, because they deserve it. Yeah. And we don't have a lot of employees. Well, we don't have any.
The appointments work out.
It's Austin, my daughter.
Yeah. The appointment works out great, because, like Maureen said, it allows us to spend that time with the individual, because every individual is important, not just somebody that comes in and wants to buy a peep or a release or this or that. And it's important to spend that time with those people. So appointments work out very well, very well. And the other side of the coin of that, too, is, we'll have appointments, and there'll be some individuals will come in and, well, all I need to do is get a peep tied in. Well, sorry, you know, Mike's
You're in
working
the
with this
middle of
guy
it,
right
right.
now, you know, and he's got an appointment right after that if you want to hang around a little bit, you know. And sometimes people get mad and they leave, but, you know, that's the way we run our shop, you
Yeah.
know. First come, first serve, and people that have appointments. And, geez, what was it, last year, the year before, Maureen was handing out numbers,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh yeah, like the meat counter, you know, the deli counter.
And I mean, that's a good thing to do though, because everybody's been in that situation. It doesn't have to be archery shop; it could be anything.
Sure. Right.
You go in there, and everybody's just so busy, and it's like there's just no organization to it. So that's a good thing that you guys do that. And the reason why I wanted to sit down with you guys as quickly as possible right now is that people need to be thinking about this in the month of July and August, not in September.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because everybody's thinking about it in September, especially the end of September.
And, you know, we
So-
run that, like Maureen mentioned, we run that boat timing and tuning special, and it's been going on now for 2 months, and we've had a lot of response to it, and we have every year. But one thing that people that are archers or hunters need to understand is when you tell them that their bow is out of time or tune, sometimes they look at you like you have two heads on your shoulders. Like, have you ever had your bow timed and tuned? Like, what are you talking about, timed and tuned? Well, yeah, they need to be timed and tuned. You know, they need to be put back into spec. You know, if it's 31 inches ATA, that's what it's supposed to be, not 31 and a quarter or 31 and a half. You know, if you need strings and cables, if it needs to be timed, if it needs to be tuned. So to educate people through a podcast like this about timing and tuning their equipment, and it's really a good idea to get it checked out every single year.
Yeah.
Because they do go out of time and tune. Strings, you know, do stretch a little bit. Not a lot in today's strings, but, you know, a lot of guys will come in and they haven't put a coat of wax on their string in 3 years.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that was me with my bow when I brought it in here for the first time. That thing needed some love.
that reduces the efficiency of the bow that you're shooting. So, yeah, something like this in the podcast, reminding people that timing and tuning is very important.
Explain that. Like, what is timing when you're going and timing and tuning a bow? What are you doing?
Well, the first thing we do is inspect it. All right, so it goes through a whole inspection process. In some cases, on the older bows, I actually delimb them to make sure there's no cracks in the limb pockets. I check for shims. I check for make sure the bearings are okay in the cams. There's no wobble in the cams. Naturally, strings, cables, no crowding in the strings, any cable wear, any string wear. And then, you know, if the bow was supposed to be a 31-inch axle-to-axle bow, that's what it's supposed to be. So if it's 31 and a quarter, it's out of spec. So there's a process that we do with the manipulating the strings if they're in still good shape to get it back in.
So because the strings stretch, the bow can almost there's less tension. So
yeah, it'll go out of spec and your poundage will go down. You know, some of the new bows in today's market have timing marks on them. Well, it's very easy to pick it up and look at it and say, well, that bow's out of time. But a lot of the older bows aren't. You're looking at cams, you're looking at cam lean, you know, adjusting cam lean. So there's quite a bit that goes into it that people don't realize. And they think, well, you know, what's this guy talking about? You know, he's just going to take it up and look at it and turn around and hand it back to me. And that's not true. When a bow is in time and a bow is in tune, it will perform as though it was brand new.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I keep going back to the first time I brought my bow in here and we put that new string on it. I immediately experienced.
Noticed the difference?
I felt, number one, probably half it was mental. I felt way more confident because I knew all the things that you guys had fixed with it that were wrong. But then the timing, if I remember correctly, the timing was off, the string was bad. You know, so we did all those things and immediately I felt a difference in the bow. You know, so it's a good thing, you know, if you're the mental aspect of a hunter to know that your equipment is up to speed. It's no different than your rifle or your gun or
Archery
whatever.
is such a mental game too.
It is. It's
You know,
all mental.
It's not just a physical game where draw back, shoot an arrow, and look through a peep. It's a very mental game.
Yep. It is. So what are you what brands are you guys currently on the bow side of it? Are you guys currently dealers for?
we have dealerships with PSE, Bear, and Athens.
Okay.
Currently, we have. The market has changed quite a bit. The economy and everything. It's hard to sell several different brands for us in our location. You have to consider your demographic area when you're stocking your store. And so we started out a hunting shop. We've always been a hunting shop. That's primarily where our expertise is. So that's kind of where we stay. We stay within that demographic. And so those are the best. We just kind of went by the numbers,
What you were moving the most,
what
you were seeing
moves.
the most success
Yeah.
with, yeah.
And then the $1,800, $1,600, $1,200 bows just aren't moving.
No.
So, we were like, well, and there's online and
Yeah.
used and, like you said before, guys who buy brand new bows every year, they put their old one online. It's practically brand new.
Yeah.
So, a lot of guys are getting really good deals on there. So we just kind of sell those
Yeah, you guys
because
are
they're
kinda
the best
changing a little
for
bit
the sport.
with the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it
You
doesn't
have
do you
to.
any good to have, $60,000 worth of inventory sitting on the wall just to say I'm a dealer for all these different brands,
Exactly.
Right, right.
I mean, are you gonna sell that $60,000 just because it's got a name to it, or are you gonna sell $80,000 worth of bows that are midline bows, ready to hunt packages, and or build your own bow with a name brand, but it's in that price range for our demographic area and geographic area.
Makes 100%
So
sense.
it just
yeah.
makes good common sense, like Maureen said, to invest the money in inventory where it's going to be an output also, and that's going to go out the door.
Yeah.
It's not going to sit there, hang on the wall, and a year from now you got to mark it down 40% or 50% to try
Yeah, you're
to
taking a
sell
wash on it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and you're
mean,
making less than
yeah.
what you had to buy it for.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so when I was going through my process of buying a new boat last year, you were telling me that you had a new brand that was you guys were going to become a dealer for, and that was Athens. And I haven't heard a ton about Athens Archery. So I'm just curious, how has that product been for you guys? What's your experience been with it?
Our pro staffer shoots it and wins an awful lot of competitions with it, but
Is that
Ruth.
Ruth, yeah. So
Ruth
she's
Ireland.
shooting in Athens.
Yeah, she loved them. Now, and this is a perfect example of what Mike was talking about earlier. She's been on our pro staff for many years. She has shot all the different brands that we've carried, and she's done well with all of them. She's just a gifted archer.
Yeah, she's a good shot. Yeah.
And then she got one of these in her hand, and she jumped from this level like 3 levels. It was just, she says, I don't know what it is about this, but I just shoot it so well. So, even though it is the archer, it goes back to their grip is what everyone says they love the best about that bow. And that's where it starts. I mean, they're local, made in America, in our backyard,
where are they
Rochester
based?
or Henrietta.
So are they part of the outdoor group or no?
No.
They're not. So there's two
No,
different
their
companies in
own-
Rochester.
Yes,
No
the
shit.
outdoor group is, Elite and,
Right.
and all those products.
Scott
and then,
and-
and then Athens is just Athens Bows.
Okay.
That Athens has actually been around for about 10 years, just not,
They're not putting
They were out
millions
in the
into
middle-
marketing dollars.
No, exactly.
Right.
No, they were out in the Midwest or something like that, I think. And Tracy and Jim Klossner purchased the company 2 years ago, I think it was.
Two and a half years ago.
Moved it they were in Rochester, is it Indiana, Illinois,
Yeah.
in the beginning, and then they moved it to Rochester, New
Really?
York.
That's funny.
Yeah, it is. Isn't that funny?
They just had to change a couple things on the business
yeah,
information.
yeah. But so they're doing really well with it. It seems. We get a lot of calls. People come in and try them out, and like I said, Ruth is loving them. And
Well, a lot of the new bow companies are going to a much slimmer line grip too. The grip on the Athens is a little bit thicker. It's not as slim as on like the PSEs or the Hoyts or the Elites, and even some of the Bears. But like we said earlier, I can't stress it enough. That's where it starts. And when the bow feels good, you're going to make it work for you. But yeah, they got a lifetime transferable warranty. You know,
They have a hunt
they
guarantee.
have a hunt guarantee warranty.
They're
What's that?
moderately priced.
Oh, so if you have a bow go down on a hunt or something,
Yep.
they hook you up.
even if it's not an
Even
Athens.
if it's not an Athens.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just got to go through the
Yep.
through the process
Yep.
of reaching out to them.
Yeah. They have a ton of information about how they do things, and
Got one
you know
of the
they're
best
kind
bow
of
techs in the country. Cody Lancaster, he's one of the best bow techs in the country. You couldn't ask for a nicer guy.
Is he local here in Rochester?
Right in Rochester.
So
He puts
He
all
works
the
for
bows together.
Athens.
they do where
he builds them.
I gotta look into them a little more, just because it'd be interesting to get them on to hear about their story directly to them. You know.
Yeah.
They're right in West Henry. I forget what their address is, but
I just think it's so funny. I mean, that's where I grew up. That's where I live. That's where a lot of the people that I interact with and that hunt, like, but most people probably have no idea that Athens Archery is literally in
Yeah.
Henrietta. It's hilarious. So that's cool, and that's awesome that you guys are, you know, supporting that brand and it's going well for you. And it's cool to have like somebody like Ruth. She's very visible. She's on social media, posting stuff all the time. Incredibly friendly. I remember you guys had an open house
Yeah.
a couple of years
Yeah,
ago.
she's
and
awesome.
She was here, and it was just like she was awesome. You're just like she's showing you around everything, and she's very knowledgeable. So it was cool to interact with her. You know, so it's good to have a face like that out there in this area that's supporting an archery product that's built here too. That's
and
cool.
not only
She's a super sportsman,
not only,
that
yeah,
girl.
Exactly.
There isn't anything that girl can't do. I mean, she's so into the outdoors and you know the fishing
she is
and
such
hunting
an ambassador
and
of the outdoors. It's,
of the whole sport. Yeah.
It's not just shooting. It's food plots and it's hunting and maintaining food plots, and she helps us with our archery clinic every year. We go to Rushford Lake Conservation
Okay.
Club with guys from Hunters
Yeah,
Creek.
yeah. Scotty's told me
We've been
about
going
that,
down
too.
there the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, during
And-
the youth.
Yeah, and unfortunately it's canceled this year. But yeah, Ruth is always there for that, and the kids just love her down there. You know, and you see a lot of repeat faces. You know, and when it comes time to split up, oh, I want to go with Ruth. You know,
Yeah.
so because she's a female archer.
Yeah.
You know, and she just takes a great interest in it. So yeah, she's great to have on board. We really lucked out with Ruth. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll have to get her on here too because she shot a slammer buck last year. That was a good
Yeah.
one she shot.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was like a good snowy day. It was like majestic.
Yep.
It's beautiful.
She has a lot of success. She really does a field. She kind of is quite humble about it, though. I mean, you don't hear about it. She goes out every day. You know, you see her posts on
Yeah.
Facebook, or you know, sometimes she gets discouraged, like everybody. But that's good. That's more education for people. Like, you're not going to go out there at 7:00 in the morning, and at 7:15 you're going to shoot a monster buck, and
Yeah.
you're going to find him at 7:20, and you're done.
Yeah,
You know, she talks a lot about the work that goes into it too.
it's important.
Yes.
Yeah, I was on the ATA did a conference call on Tuesday that was kind of like an industry call, and I'm not in the industry, but I'm like, well, I just went online and I figured out how to sign up for it, so I got on the call, and I'm just a listener on there, you know, but it was really interesting to hear the direction that a lot of the key people, the influencers in our industry now, these, you know, the Mark Kenyons and the Aaron Warbritons from the hunting public, these guys that really have a voice now, and a lot of people look to them, especially new hunters look to them for guidance on what it's supposed to be. And a big part of the conversation was the whole, you know, showing the whole story and not just having it be totally focused on horns.
Yep.
Because that's so discouraging. If you're I don't care if you've been hunting for 10 years. If you're at some point you're going to burn out if all you see on social media and on the outdoor channel and YouTube is just people shooting giant bucks all the time, and somebody gets shamed because they shoot something small.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
terrible.
disgusting. That's
Yeah.
shaming.
I want to see people out there harvesting deer, shooting what they want to shoot. If it trips your trigger, that's what you want to
Yep.
get. If that meets your goals of filling the freezer, feeding your family,
It's like we tell
more power to you.
well,
You know,
we tell them here in the shop, the animal is in the eyes of the beholder. If you're satisfied with that animal, then by all means, take it, harvest it, process it, put it in your freezer. And people that put other people down for shooting smaller bucks, need to get a good kick in the you-know-what, because that's bull.
Yeah.
There's so many guys and women out here that hunt that don't have the opportunity to harvest a huge buck because they've never even seen one.
Yeah.
And for somebody to put them down for shooting a spike or a 4-pointer or what have you is terrible.
Especially somebody their very first year hunting. That's what really gets me. I feel so bad.
Yeah.
It's a horrible thing, but that's just how social media has gone lately.
Yeah.
Look, I hunted in
Sadly.
Pennsylvania since I was 12 years old, and we hunted about 2 miles back in the woods. You shot the first buck you saw. If it was a spike, a 3-pointer, my first buck in 1966 was a 1-horn. It was a brow tine on the left side. The main rack was broke off during the velvet, and the right side was broke off during gun season. Yeah, one little 8-inch spike, and that
unicorn.
Yeah, that's all it was. And my father said, "Did you get him?" I said, "Yeah, I got him." And when we went up to find him, it fell off.
Yeah.
And then my dad had to find it in the snow.
That's hilarious.
And then when we got it back to the camp, it just so happened that one of the wardens was going by, and he saw the deer on the front of the Jeep, and he comes pulling in, and he actually took that rack and made sure it, not a rack, the spike.
Yeah, made sure it fit in the pedicle.
Made sure it fit in the pedicle, and
Yeah.
oh yeah, okay. And I remember my grandfather saying, "Don't worry about it, Sonny, it'll fit in there,"
Yeah.
But I shot plenty of small bucks, and I was very happy with every single one I shot.
100%. And that's we've talked about it quite a bit on here that there's nothing wrong with wanting to shoot big bucks, but that's your choice.
Yep.
You don't have to force your opinions and your choices on everybody else. And it's
Yep.
this
no
last
matter
year
what the
I shot the
subject.
biggest buck I've ever shot this year, and I also shot a smaller buck, and I shot a smaller buck down in PA, and I saw 3 legal points, and I'm in action.
Yep.
That's all I needed to know.
Yep.
Same thing. We're back in the middle of nowhere, in the state forest, and we shoot something down here. We're packing it out, and that's the pride. The pride's cutting that meat up, putting it in game bags, and hauling it out of here, and getting back to camp and telling the story. And I'm never gonna remember how big that rack was. I'm gonna remember the story of carrying that deer out of that.
Yeah, and
out
the
of that
experience
valley
of camp. And
with my best friend and my
I
brother-in-law.
can't begin to tell you how many deer we pulled out, because there was no snow on the ground. How many deer we drug out before we got smart enough to put them on a pole, and then got smart enough to buy one of these kids' toboggans, plastic toboggans, and take it back in the woods and lace it on that and drag it out when there was no snow on the ground. But it was a trek, but you remember every single one. You remember every single story. I was just down my buddy's camp a couple weeks ago in Allegheny County, and we sat there Saturday night, and we told story after story after story, and it was the same ones we tell every year we get together.
Right, 100%.
Same ones.
Yeah.
And you laugh just as hard. So
that's so much a part of it, though, the camaraderie. Mike always says.
I always say the camaraderie is more important than anything.
It is.
Well, I mean, you all the guys that come in here, they're like, "Oh, my camp." It's like everyone we know has a hunting camp.
Yeah.
And they don't go there only during hunting season anymore because it's just so much fun.
Yeah.
So why do we have to only wait for a week out of the year? Let's go in May. Let's go in July.
Yeah.
Bring the family. We can tell stories. They'll tell the same hunting stories even if they're at hunting camp, and the only one that gets bored with them is probably the wives.
Yeah, well,
because it's
couldn't
like,
agree
oh,
more
not
with that.
this story again. I've heard this one 100 times.
Yeah, my wife knows that feeling. We sit down and start
try to
telling
be
stories.
me in here with 100
At least
different
you're into
customers
it.
a day.
At least you're into it. You can somewhat understand, but those stories do get
Well,
repetitive.
the variations keep it interesting too.
It's like, that's not the same story as last year, Bob. What the hell are you talking about?
Just kidding.
Is that really what happened?
Yeah, it's, I don't know how we got off there, but that's such a great topic. It's super important. Every one of us, that's whether you own a pro shop like you guys, or you have a platform like ours, or you're just somebody like Ruth who is sharing her experiences on social media, you gotta make sure that you're portraying a positive image. You don't need to sugarcoat shit. If something goes wrong and you wound a deer or something, like, don't hide what's going on. If you're sharing it all, share it all.
Yep.
But also don't demean somebody because they're not doing the same thing you're doing, whether it's shooting a crossbow or shooting a small buck or whatever, let it be.
Well, stuff happens out in the woods. It's like I tell people that come in here, they're like, how should I do this? How should I do that? I can't tell you how that's going to go once you get in your tree stand. You know, every sit is going to be different. So, you know, a lot of it is just learning from the experience of each time you go out a field, whether, you know, from year to year to year to year. And, you know, that's kind of fun part of it too.
It is.
You know, well, I prefer tree stand hunting, or I prefer being on the ground, or I like spot and stalk, or, you know, all different types of harvesting an animal. What works best for you? What are you most physically able to do?
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of pride in filling your own freezer. So, you know, we try to help people find what's best for them, how they're going to be successful, because it just, like we said before, when they bring that harvest back, it's a highlight of our day.
Yep. Yeah. So what else do you guys, so obviously you have the bows. We talked about bows and what you do for your tuning and stuff like that. You have a lot of stuff here. So it's not, I don't want to focus just on bows and the tuning aspect of it and shooting. You have a large selection of arrows upstairs.
Yes.
So you guys do quite a bit with that. So what do you do? Arrows, at least from my perspective, have become a kind of a fad thing. People love arrows and messing with arrow weights and broadheads and things like that. So what do you guys most, like, what arrows are you guys most apt to trust or sell that you guys have on the shelf? Is there anything in particular that you...
We've been a gold tip dealer since day one. They're an excellent, excellent arrow. We haven't had any problems with them in 10 years. We recently picked up Killin' Sticks, which is a new arrow. And they're great guys, and their arrows are awesome as well. You know, that's one of the things when we talked about it a tiny bit in the beginning. When you're setting up your bow, you get done, okay, your draw weight is this, your draw length is this. And so you go to the specs that gold. We always start with what Gold Tip recommends, and they not only have recommendations for your setup, they also have recommendations. Are you going to go to Colorado and do a pack out on an elk, you know, or are you going to be just deer hunting in, you know, at your hunting camp in your neighborhood? Because they also make arrows that will fit those different situations. You know, a long range, one that can, you know, help with the wind a little bit.
Right.
So, you know, you start off with, say, a 400 spine. Okay, well, you fit right into the 400 spine aspect. And then you tweak it from there. And it really is kind of fun to do that, you know, as I'm sure you found when you're getting more interested in how all that works. You know, what are you looking to get out of that? And it's based on, I just spent $12,000 on this hunt I'm going to in the Arctic or Saskatchewan or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I'm going to harvest something because I just spent a big money.
How often do you see that? The arrow, to me, it's become so interesting on my end because it's such a small, it's an individual piece of that process, and it goes all the way down to the broadhead, the importance, and even the fletches and the knock. You know, there's so much to it. You don't think about it. That person that could be going on that $12,000 dream hunt, they might have a $1,200 bow and just paid for this $1,200 hunt and all the fancy gear on their clothing and their backpack and everything, but they might be shooting a cheap arrow and a less than quality broadhead. And what the hell good's that going to do you when you do go back in, you're on this big adventure and you actually go to make that shot and you hit a shoulder and your broadhead doesn't deploy, your arrow's not heavy enough and it doesn't do the job it needs to.
Right.
So like that's probably, you were going in that direction, but it's the same question when somebody walks in the door and is looking to purchase a bow. It's what are you looking to do with this setup? Because you're going to have a different setup for a 3D target than you are for trying to shoot an elk or even a whitetail. You know, it's a different.
Absolutely. And you know, as far as the actual paid hunts that you go on and the animals that you go after, that's a little bit different. That's like all arrow, broadhead. You know, make sure your equipment is in the best shape that it can be. So, yeah, I mean, you know, you can So they normally come in well ahead of when their hunt is scheduled. We go through all of the specs, you know. Sometimes they've already done a lot of research because there's really a lot of information out there that you can find out. And they talk, you know, they can go on and talk or read or whatever, listen to different experiences from, you know, the professional hunters that go all over the place and do this all the time. So that's kind of the best advice. That's usually the direction I tell people to go in, you know. Go on, and well, the ones that I know best, because, you know, is Bone Cold TV. You know, they go everywhere, and we've worked very closely with them for many years. So, you know, that's usually where I send them, and they can get a lot of information. Those guys are so nice, you know, to talk to and that. But then, you know, so you can like say, well, you know, I'm not quite sure what I want to do. So they get a choice of, like, maybe they pick out 2 different arrows, you know, 2 different spines, a couple of different broadheads, and they go home and they're like, you know, I have done the research and I have found out that my shots typically for this animal in this terrain is probably going to be maybe 50 to 60 yards, which is a poke.
Yeah.
You know, so set up a target and practice, you know, 50, 60 yards in your backyard if you can, you know, and find out, okay, this arrow got 6 inches penetration with 100 grain, and this arrow got, you know, 8 inches with 125 grain. And that's how you have to break it all down for you. Again, it comes back to, it's still an individual thing. You know, I can't say, well, yeah, if you're going on an elk hunt, then you need a 250 spine with this, you know, and that, you know, this fletching and this helical.
There's no perfect answer. People have killed
it's not,
elk with,
especially with arrows. I mean, they're like one of the most important parts of your whole hunting setup.
Yeah, we stock gold tip and killing sticks, but we special order a lot of arrows. You know, different arrows for guys. You know, everybody has their favorite. You know,
what they've had success
Easton
with.
Shooters. Some guys are Beeman shooters. You know, some guys are Black Eagle shooters. You know, they want the arrow that they've been shooting with, and like we said earlier on, if it's not broke, why fix it? I mean, if you've been shooting Black Eagle, Easton, or another arrow, and we don't stock it, we can get it for you. Stick with it. You know. And then some guys will say, well, I wouldn't mind trying them. You know, I've heard a lot about them. But so, yeah, we do a lot of special orders. Marine orders a lot of different type of arrows.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I had a question for you, because this applies to me, is that I have a setup for my hunting arrows. And then last year we went to Total Archery Challenge down in Pennsylvania. I'm going again in August. And I don't know if you guys have heard about that event, but
sounds fun,
incredible time. Like, you guys should definitely go to that some year, because the environment is just awesome. Nobody's keeping score. It's just a ton of people that just love archery and love hunting. It's awesome. And what's she prowling? Is she causing trouble back there?
Well, his favorite thing is to play under.
I've been calling him a she this whole time.
Yeah, that's okay. To play underneath the chair like it's a hiding place.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
That's what he's doing.
So I bought, because you're taking extremely long shots that are not normal at targets that are tucked in behind trees, and it's a blown up arrow waiting to happen.
Sure.
So last year I bought a bunch of arrows. They're Beeman ICS hunters, but they were the Cabela's brand. And they were inexpensive. I bought them because I knew damn well I was going to be blowing arrows up on trees, and I didn't want to be tossing money down the range. But my question to you is, my hunting arrow that I use it's a real heavy arrow. It's a Day 6 is the brand, and it's 537 grains, the total arrow weight. But then I'm shooting this lighter weight arrow, just a regular Beeman ICS hunter. That thing's like, I think it's like 430 grains with the point on it and everything. So is that good for a bow to be shooting different weight arrows at different times?
As long as your bow can handle that spine arrow and your draw length and everything's compatible. Just because your arrow's heavier doesn't mean that it's not compatible to the bow.
Okay.
I changed my arrow setup this year because I'm down to 52 pounds, or last year. So I was shooting a 404 grain arrow. I'm shooting a 540 grain arrow now. I loaded it up way up front. It's real heavy front and center.
Cool.
I got 8 more inches of penetration out of it. I switched from a multiple pin sight to a single pin sight. So once I sighted it in for 20 yards, when I go to shoot at 30, I'm between 30 and 40, almost at 40. because my arrow's so heavy.
Yeah.
But it flies nice. It goes into target nice and flat, and you can hear the thwack on it.
And your bow's probably quieter too, isn't it?
It's a lot quieter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I noticed when I
Yeah.
went from, because I was shooting full metal jackets, and I went from the full metal jackets to this day 6 and added 100 grains to my arrow, and it was like, holy crap! That
Yeah, I
quieted
mean,
my
it's still
bow
a
down.
400 spine arrow.
Yeah.
But it's a lot heavier.
Yeah.
You know. So.
Yeah, you just always got to watch. You never want to be underspined. You know, being overspined is not going to damage your bow in any way. Being underspined can.
So with the spine, just to explain, anybody who doesn't know, with the being underspined would be, if let's say you should be in a 300 spine, you don't want to be shooting a 400 spine, correct? That would be being underspined.
The numbers are the opposite in archery. So if you should be in a 300 spine arrow, you definitely do not want to shoot a 600 spine.
Yeah. So you wouldn't
Right,
want to
right.
go up in number. You would want to.
You don't want to go down.
Yeah.
Well, it
Or
all
is- or
depends
it's
on the
flipped the other way.
manufacturer.
Okay.
'Cause some arrows,
backwards.
some arrow manufacturers are opposite.
Why would they do that?
You know.
Because
confusing.
we need to spend more money and carry
Yeah.
all these other different things. There's no way to carry all the products.
To make it easy, if shooting a gold tip arrow, if you're supposed to be shooting a 400 spine and you're shooting a 500 spine, you're doing damage to the bow, because instead of the arrow absorbing the energy is getting some of the energy is getting transferred into the bow itself, whether it's the limb, the risers, and before you know it, you're going to blow your bow up.
Okay.
So shooting under spine is not good.
Yeah.
Not
And
good. And there's
air-
guys that want to shoot the lightest possible arrow they can.
Speed,
and,
speed,
and we've
speed.
had bows come in here where they're shooting way under spine, and
Well, in perspective, it's almost like dry firing your bow every
Yeah.
time you shoot an underspine arrow.
Because your
Even
arrow's
though
coming
it
out and
doesn't-
it's flopping like a noodle, right? Because if
That depends, yeah.
it's flopping, but the energy isn't being transferred all into the arrow.
But if you've got a
because
really
it's so underspine.
if you've got an underspined arrow, if you're shooting 65 pounds, your arrow is underspined, it's going to
Yep.
flex a lot more.
Yes,
Yes.
Whereas
exactly.
if you were to go to a lower spine and stiffen it up, this is how I understand it.
Right.
If you were to stiffen
Right.
that spine up, your arrow's not going to flex as much.
Correct.
So it's not going to be as forgiving
Correct.
when it comes out of the
Correct.
bow. But that's like, this is a perfect example. There's just like so much out there, and
Yeah.
there's so much stuff to it. It's super important to do your research before you go in, because it's super easy right now to go online and hit that buy button, and then you've got a stack of arrows.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I think these are right. Until about the time I started coming here to see you guys,
And
I
there-
had no freaking clue what I was doing.
And
with
there's
them.
a lot that happens a lot. We get
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of it every single year where people will buy arrows online, and they'll come in and they're the wrong spine for their setup.
Yeah.
Well, what am I going to do now?
Yeah. Well, it was such a good deal. Well, yeah. Well, that's great.
And there's a big that you were talking about putting weight up front. There's that's a very popular thing right now to get more front of center
Yep.
FOC weight.
Yep.
And that changes your spine too. Anything
Yep.
you do to that arrow, they give you your spine. If this is a 400 spine arrow,
Yep.
as soon as you start adding things to it, you're changing the dynamic of that arrow. So it's important for people to understand
Yep.
that just because you go out and buy, it says you need a 400 grain or 400 spine arrow. Just because you go out and buy that 400 spine arrow doesn't mean that when you put 150 grains up front and then put a 100 grain broadhead on it, that is not a 400 spine arrow anymore.
Right. Right.
It's different. It's changed.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, in my case, because of only shooting 52 pounds, I haven't killed a deer with it yet because I cut my fingers off last year. So
I noticed you were missing something more there than what I
Yeah.
remembered.
Yeah, I cut
So
them
that's what happened.
yeah,
Judas Priest. I knew you had an injury,
I
but
crushed them in a log splitter.
were you by yourself or were?
Yeah, I was out here splitting wood,
Oh no.
and I left a beautiful buck go. What?
2 days.
2
before.
days before that, good 130-inch buck, and drew back on him twice, let him go at 14 yards, and 2 days later crushed these off, and I was done for the
Oh
season.
my God.
So,
That's awful, man.
but we'll see what happens this year.
Yeah, that's your shooting hand.
Yeah. And I used to shoot with this finger because this one was still short, so now I had to change my anchor point and everything.
So what are you using? Are you using a trigger or using a?
No, I'm using a trigger, but
Yeah.
I changed my anchor and
Draw length.
draw length and
Yeah.
Works out.
You've got the skills to figure that out.
Yeah, it works out.
Yeah, took him a little bit, but he figured it all out.
Wow, that's crazy. I knew you had an injury, but I had no idea
Yeah.
it was that severe. That's crazy.
October 10th. Yeah.
You'll never forget that day.
Nope. We were really busy.
Yeah, I bet. Not a good time to have
It was
that
kind of
happen.
tough.
Yeah. Jeez Louise.
So then we took on a new clothing line this year.
Did you?
Hey,
Arctic Shield.
Arctic Shield. We've
Really?
been using Arctic Shield for 10 years.
Since I started.
Yeah, 10 years, 12 years. Very, very happy, very satisfied with it. So we decided to bring it into the shop this year and see what happens. But I've had great luck with it, great success with it. It's warm,
I
it's
love it.
quiet. I've sat in 50-degree below zero temperatures with it. I'm an all-day sitter anyhow.
Do they make like stuff that's not meant for super cold weather?
Yes.
Or is
Yep.
it?
Yeah,
Because
they do.
my experience with them, we've all, most of my family, we've had some sort of Arctic Shield stuff before, but it's all been cold weather, sitting gear, not.
They make
Up
lighter
and
gear
moving
now
around.
too.
They do make a lighter line too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Early
their
season,
I love their boot blankets. I think that's a little hidden secret out there that not a lot of people. I call them boot blankets, but the little
Yeah.
boot
Yeah,
covers.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah,
there.
if you don't have a set of them and you hunt anywhere north of anywhere where you get cold in deer season, you should have a pair of those in your backpack because
You got to try those dry shot boots.
what's that?
Phew, we're a dry shot dealer. Best hunting boot I ever had in my life.
Really?
Mine are good for 50 below zero. That pair of white socks, cotton work socks like that, put them in that boot.
Is it a rubber boot or is it a
Yep.
yeah?
The owner of Muck had a 5-year non-compete clause after he sold Muck and he started dry shot.
Okay, I've never heard of it.
Yep. They make all different styles, all different temperature ranges. We sell a lot of them every single year,
Especially the hunting boots.
especially
Yeah.
the hunting boot. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean around here the majority of people deer hunting are going to get in a tree stand or ground blind and sit, and there's just
Yep.
it's the number one thing that goes bad first. It's your
Yep.
feet.
As soon as your feet go, it's only a matter of time before the rest is following.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. So that's
I know.
cool. I didn't know you guys were carrying the clothing brand too. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, we have the crossbows. We have pretty much everything that you could need for hunting.
You guys still carrying? You guys were doing muzzle loaders.
We
and
still
stuff?
do
You
muzzle loaders. Yep.
One-stop shop.
Yeah, and that's what you get with coming to a place like this compared to going to a big box store. I go to Cabela's. I shop at Cabela's. But you're not going to get the expertise or the opinion of I've used this or this is what we trust. You go to there's some very knowledgeable people at Cabela's, but there's also a lot of people that's just their 9 to 5 or their part-time job to pay the bills, and they don't have the experience with the product.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you come in here, and you guys have selected those brands that you've named that you guys support because you believe in them, you've used them,
Yeah,
you have.
Yeah.
reason
I think
for
everything
having
we
them.
have here in the shop we have used.
Well, I think that's important. We can kind of, do a trial run, test it out for you. But there's been a lot of products that we've also dropped because of quality, price.
Yep.
Customer support probably is a big one.
Absolutely. There was, that was, a big camera manufacturer was one of them. But absolutely. I mean, because we do it for the passion, and we do it for our customers.
It's good stuff.
So the more we can educate them, and you work hard for your money. This can be a large investment, hunting or even just shooting. It's a large investment, and most everyone gets a lot out of it, so that's not an issue for anybody. But there's a lot of people that really want to do it, but they have a more of a tighter budget. So we try to address and help everybody that wants to get into the sport of hunting to get into the sport of hunting.
Yeah, that's all we can ask for from a pro shop like you guys in our backyard. That's awesome, and I hope everybody that's listening to this hears that message.
That's why we're glad to be here.
Yeah.
And we appreciate the support that we get from every customer that walks in this door, because we are out in no man's land. We're out in, we're not a big box store. We're not on a main drag. We're on a backcountry road, and we appreciate everybody that comes to the shop, every single person.
So, in wrapping this up, I'm interested, and it's something I want to do on every episode, and I freaking forget, is I want to hear if you guys remember. I'm sure, Maureen, you remember yours. I don't know, Mike, I'm sure you haven't forgotten what your first buck experience was, the first buck you killed. So I guess who wants to go first?
I think I already told you what my first buck was. I was 12 years old. It was a spike buck. It was on the first Saturday of the gun season in 1966 in Pennsylvania. It was at 7:05 a.m. It was on a Saturday.
What was the weather doing?
It was snowing like crazy and cold. Prior to that, I had missed 7 bucks with a 30-30 Winchester. And my dad and I just got into the woods, and this buck come walking down through it. I said, "Dad, that's a buck." He said, "Nah," he said, "he don't have no horns." I said, "Yeah, he does." He said, "He's only got 1 horn." And he said, "Are you sure?" "Oh, yeah." He said, "I see it." He says, "Well, shoot him if you want." So I shot him, and he took off running, and he went over this little ridge line not far in front of us. And my dad made me stay there, and he called me on the walkie-talkie, and he said, "I found him, but you got to come over." So I started going down out of the ground blind that we had built, and I fell in the creek, and it was soaking wet, snowing like crazy. Got over to my dad, and he said, "Here he is right here, but he don't have any horns on him. His horn fell off." He said, "So you stand right here." So I stood right next to the deer, and he backtracked in his footprints and in the blood. And about 15 yards from where he keeled over, he found where he dipped his head and went up against the side of a tree, and that horn snapped right off, and the only thing sticking out of the snow was the socket. And then we hooped and hollered and hugged each other and cried and was happy, and out of the woods we went.
It's awesome. It's a great story. So that's the buck you were talking about earlier.
Yep, that's my first buck.
That's awesome. You got one to top that, or what?
I don't know if it tops it, but it was my very first year I ever hunted. And I had a lot of trail cameras out, and I patterned, these two. I called them Bullwinkle and Rocky. And he was a 17-point non-typical, junk everywhere. I was just looking for the picture. I have a picture of him upstairs. And we have property 2 miles from here, and they always start there, and then this is very thick behind our house, so there's a lot of doe, and they have their babies here and everything.
Yeah.
So the bucks normally we discovered through cameras that they'll travel that 2 miles, and they end up here, here at the shop during the rut. So you have a small window of not having to really go very far.
That is hilarious. Kinda nice. They come right to you.
Oh, yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah. So I have a stand over there. And I threw up a ground blind back here in the pine trees. And Mike had already tagged out and shot his buck. And I was like, I'd never really gone out hunting by myself before. He was always nearby in a stand or something, or in the blind with me or something. And he's like, "No." So he's on the computer doing stuff. And I'm the one going, "I'm going out hunting. I'll see you later." I was like, this is weird. And so I go out the front door, and I'm walking over, and here's this skunk with her babies, and I'm going, "Oh my God," eating right in my pathway. So I come back in, and he's yelling at me. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "There's a skunk out there." He's like, "Go around him." And he's yelling at me, "Get in the blind." Okay. So I go out, and I go all the way around. I finally get in the blind. And that season had been drizzly and rainy every single day. Yeah, we went out every single day because I wanted Bullwinkle. That was the only buck I was focused on. I let a ton of other deer walk by. Yeah. Never shot a deer before. So I'm sitting there, and it's not light out yet. So I'm freezing, and I got my bow in the stand, and I got my hands in my muff, and I'm shaking and doing the thing to keep warm. And all of a sudden I look, and it was rainy, so quiet. And he is standing from where the window was, like where the counter is.
Come on.
He's standing there, and I'm like, oh, shit. And I didn't really know
You're in a ground blind, or you're in a...
I'm in a ground blind.
Oh, my
He's
God.
right there.
So you're at eye level with him.
Yeah. He came around the pine tree, and I didn't have the back window open because it was quiet and I didn't want to spook them, so I only had the only one window open. So I'm like trying to get my bow out of the stand, and it gets caught naturally. Everything that could go wrong possibly went wrong. Okay, so finally I get the bow out of the stand, and I'm pretty focused, and I didn't have time to think about anything, and sometimes I think that's better.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And then watching them come, and I've had that before too. So I finally get everything all set, and I'm wah, wah, and he just keeps on walking, and I'm like, what's going on? Why won't he stop? Well, apparently, I guess he couldn't hear me in the blind. So he keeps walking, and he's just walking really super slow right in front of the blind. And I got this big window. And so I just go, hey! And he stops, and he looks right at the house. And, I was already, in full draw, and I just put the pin on him, and I shot. It went in the back. And because
he was quartering away,
he was quartering away a little bit,
shot, please.
And so I did not kill him, but I looked for him for 7 hours because I shot a low poundage and I let him get too far away, and I just didn't have enough to get up there and do all the damage.
Yeah. So the arrow was up in there, but it didn't
never
get
got
far
into the
enough.
diaphragm.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So I call him my demon buck.
We did find the arrow. After 7 hours,
he pulled it out.
He stopped and he pulled it out. And our neighbor shot him the first day of
gun.
Oh, no kidding. So at least there was an ending to the story.
Yeah.
You knew where the deer.
Yeah, I mean that was.
He shot him 3 miles from here.
I shot him, and Mike is like, I thought he was in the house, and he wasn't. And I'm just like, as soon as the shot left, and I knew I hit him, he jumped and he took off, turned around, and ran into the woods. And I'm calling Mike, and he's not answering. And I'm like freaking out because he's like, no, I'm going to drive around and see. And I'm hyperventilating. I needed a brown paper bag. So I'm starting to yell at him on his message, you need to get home. You need to help me. We got to go get him. I just shot Bullwinkle. And I was just, it's a feeling when you shot your first buck, it's such, there's no words.
Yeah.
No words.
Well, I can't imagine it being a deer of that caliber either and having it that close.
My very first buck, it would have ruined me.
Yeah.
Well, he did ruin me, actually. That's why I call him my demon buck.
Yeah.
But I just felt bad. I was glad somebody got him because I just,
Did you change anything with your bow setup after that?
Absolutely. That is when I learned about arrows and how to get the most out of your arrow for that kill shot.
Yeah.
Because it was devastating. It really was devastating to lose a deer like that.
So what are you using? I should have asked that earlier, but I'm curious because you shooting a lower poundage arrow. I guess both of you, because you said you made an adjustment to your arrow. Like what are you shooting, Marine?
We went heavier and stiffer. Now, and you get a personal preference. I also had a rage on that day. Mm-hmm. And it malfunctioned.
Yeah.
Okay, so that added to the devastation, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I'm done with that. It's just not going to work for me. And that's when, like I said, it wasn't my very first year. I didn't know anything, but what you learn out of each time you go out is huge.
100%.
So, I shoot a fixed, I shoot Montex because I like the one piece, carbon steel, and heavier. But I took, because I have the opportunity, of really doing a comparison,
right.
So I took I don't know, it must have been 6 different kinds of arrows, all different spines, all different weights, and fletched them all different ways and did all that. And I finally ended up with the 500 spine kinetic chaos, the skinny ones with the outsert and the brass collars, and and that with the G5 Montec, I would get 6 inches more penetration than any other arrow I used. And that's what I was going for based on my experience. And that picture has never left my mind in 12 years.
You very well could have gotten a pass through with that arrow that you're shooting now. I mean,
I would have definitely had a much better chance.
Oh, the shot placement was perfect. It was quartering away. It was right in front of the right rear hip. Mm-hmm. Drove right up in through but it didn't get up into the diaphragm to get a lung or you know. And when that guy shot him, I mean, you could see right where the arrow went in, you know. And
luckily we knew the taxidermist.
Yeah, well, and it's important when you think about this. Like I was always an expandable guy, and I've gone to fixed blade, not because I've really had anything happen to me that made me change that, but I learned more about the expandables. They take energy, and a lot of what would probably happen with your situation is that you're not shooting super heavy draw weight, and not a lot of poundage, so as soon as that arrow hits a deer and those blades need to deploy, that's taking energy away from your arrow that's trying to penetrate the animal.
Absolutely.
And that's something that anybody who's listening to this that is trying, regardless of it, you got to think about it, because for me, my mental block is always gotta avoid the shoulder, because I've heard so many nightmares of people hitting the shoulder with a expandable and the arrow just literally bouncing off. So for me, I decided I want to go heavy, and I want to go with a really sharp, high quality fixed blade broadhead. That thing is gonna, if I hit that deer anywhere, that arrow is zipping through that thing. So like,
yeah, shoulders can be tricky, as you know, but you know, and that's also going to depend on angle. Are you in a tree? Are you on the ground? What is your angle? You know,
no doubt.
So yeah, but I do know a lot of guys that are like, oh, I've used this broadhead forever. I blow right through the shoulder. So they can.
Yeah.
You know,
in your situation, that arrow goes up in there, and it probably hit the guts and the lungs, and that thing probably just got sucked up in there, and it didn't do enough damage. Because I mean, you hit him in an area where if you were cutting stuff, it would have killed him over time, but obviously it didn't. So it's interesting. So
it was it was November 2nd, so it was pretty close to gun.
Yeah.
So
a week and a half that the deer, and he was 3 miles away, so he was covering ground.
Yeah, he was 3 miles.
Yep.
Chasing girls around.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So
Stud
you know,
of a deer too.
Yeah, I got to see a picture of that.
I got them upstairs. I'll show them to you.
So what are, I guess, kind of in wrapping this up, but I am interested in what you're shooting, Mike.
Right now I'm shooting kill and stick microventilator, super small diameter, 540 grain, and I'm still shooting a Rage, but I shoot the chisel tips.
Okay.
Had luck with them. Stayed with them, so
because that has a cut on contact head that's gonna start cutting.
We're gonna see what it does with this arrow, but kill a lot of deer with them. Mm-hmm. You know, I've been shooting Rages ever since they came out, so and every year they come out with something different. Except I got hooked on these chisel tips, and I really like them. Shoot them out of the crossbow too. They're devastating. I shot that buck right there in Ohio with the crossbow, chasing a doe running away from me. I shot him right in the back of the head, and he dropped right there.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, sniped him.
Yeah, he didn't know what hit him.
I didn't know.
It was lights out.
Yeah.
When he fell backwards, he was running up the hill. When he fell backwards, his rack stuck right in the dirt. His legs were out like this. And
that's awesome. Yep, sharpshooter with the crossbow. So what are you using to get that weight up front?
It's the insert that comes with them.
Okay. Can you screw?
It's an outsert.
It's an outsert. It's a stainless steel outsert.
Okay.
It's very heavy.
Real heavy.
And so that outsert, because I have them on mine, so that slides. It's a one piece, and it's like slides over the end of the arrow. Yep. So you put your glue on it, and then you put that on. So you have an insert.
I don't even glue mine.
You don't even glue them?
No, I just let the feel point and the broadhead.
Well, on that arrow, it's such a tight fit, you don't need to. But you normally need to glue them.
I can shoot it without that if I don't want it.
Okay.
So that's why I don't glue them. Even like with the gold tips, with the chaoses, they have that outsert that goes over the end. You know, you could take that off. It doesn't add that much more weight, but you can take that off and shoot it without them also.
You mean the collar?
The collar, yeah. The ballistic collar that they call it.
Yeah.
Fancy name.
Well, they're kind of supposed to help you tune your broadhead.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of not. So that's interesting to me because I glued my inserts in my insert outsert, whatever you want to call it. I glued that on to my day 6 arrows without thinking about putting my broadheads on those inserts to get them lined up. I didn't do that. I didn't
Yeah.
read the directions. I just did it. So it's not affecting me when I'm shooting deer at 10 yards.
Right.
But if I'm starting to try to shoot at 50, 60 yards
Yeah.
going out west, then you're going to start having a difference there. But, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, gold tips. Which one? I forget which one it is now. They've got quite a few.
Pierce?
I don't. No, I think it. I forget which one it is. If I saw it upstairs, I would know right off the bat. But they have the long range. It just has a shorter profile in the veins, and it has some of them are 3 and some of them are 4.
Okay.
So whenever you're going out long range in the wind, you want the shorter profile for sure.
Yeah. I wanted to kind of touch on because, and I didn't know that's what you both were using, but that's very similar to the setup that I'm using, and I think it's good for people to hear that you guys are doing those sort of things, because I don't think there's a ton of people out there that are doing that locally, like a shop you can go to.
I call Maureen the arrow guru because, like she said earlier, she tested all these different arrows, all these different broadheads because of low pounders. So every once in a while, somebody will come up in the shop and they'll ask me a question, and if I don't know the answers, go talk with the arrow guru. She'll straighten you out.
Oh, you remember that one guy that came in here, and he was asking me all kinds of questions, and I'm explaining everything to him about arrows, and he's like, "Oh, okay," and so, and I'm up there doing stuff, so I can hear him, and he walks in, and Mike's busy, and Mike says, "Can I help you?" And he says, "Yeah, I got some questions on arrows." So Mike's like, "Okay," didn't know he talked to me, and so the guy asked him the question. And Mike tells him, and he goes, "That's the same thing your wife just told me." Mike goes, "So then what the hell are you asking me for?"
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes
He didn't trust you as the guru. But
you know,
let's be honest.
let's not go there.
Yeah,
You know,
I know.
but-
I love that how talkative you've been on here, because you do have a lot of knowledge and experience. And I experienced the same thing with Ruth. Is, let's be honest, it's typically a male-dominated sport.
Sure.
But you come in here and you guys must make women feel super comfortable when they come in here, because
just
you
grab
guys,
them
yeah,
and take them.
and
I'm like,
immediately,
"Oh, girl."
yeah,
Yes.
and immediately you understand that, you know what the hell you're talking about, and that's awesome. So
That's how actually we met Ruth. She was going to other shops. She didn't like the treatment she was getting, because you know how good she is. She came here out of the blue. I forget how. I'd have to ask her the story on how she even found us. And she walked in, and I thought she needed bow work, which she did. So she went to Mike, and then Mike was working on her bow, and we got to talking. And she was just like, "Oh my God, it is so nice to talk to another girl that knows what I'm talking about." So yeah, that's how we met Ruth. But yeah, I mean, I've been in a male-dominated job my whole life. I'm very used to it. It doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
It's like that's fine. If you prefer Mike's opinion, that's great. I mean, I don't know everything. Half the time, I'm like, well, you got to ask Mike.
Yeah.
But when I do, I don't pretend to know things I don't know.
yeah, as being a new girl dad, I'm happy to have someone like you in the neighborhood, so I can bring my daughter over here in 4 or 5 years and get her tuned up with something to start flinging arrows. So
Oh yeah, we'll get her ready.
I think that's a good place to wrap her up. So real quick, if you guys want to give a quick plug of where people can find you, or best way to get in touch with you. Is it?
Well, our phone number is 585-356-0802. All of the information that's going on within the shop is on the voicemail. So if you call and we don't answer, whether we're busy with a customer or we're closed that day, listen to the whole voicemail, because it's going to tell you everything you need to know. What our hours are, the whole specials we got going on, everything that's going on. And then if you go on our Facebook page, Earth Spirits, it will give you directions. We're at 4821 Stevens Road in Warsaw. The map will take you right here. We're out in nowhere man's land, how Mike says it.
Yeah.
But
It's a pretty straight shot. If you're coming from Buffalo
It's not
or from
hard to
Rochester,
find.
you can either take Route 19 from Rochester, or you can take
20A.
20A from Buffalo. So
Yep.
it may be a little bit of a drive on the map, but it's a beautiful drive either way. And
Yep.
And it's
not
really not as long as everybody thinks it is.
No.
So, oh my God, you're all the way out there. I live in Buffalo. Well, Buffalo's only 33 miles away from here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, once you get away from the city, it doesn't take too long to get out here.
Yeah.
So. Unless you get stuck behind a shit spreader on 28. But aside from that, that's about the only difference.
yeah.
So, all right. Thank you guys so much for having me here. And
Thank you,
it's
Bill.
fun chatting with you and getting to know you guys a little bit better. So,
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
No problem. Everybody come check these guys out. Thanks.